The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of ParaX, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
All these voices. All these voices. All these things you can't explain. All these painful memories. They keep haunting you and daunting me. It's just the ghost of you and me. It's just the smoke and gasoline. It's just the ghost of you and me. Of you and me.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Staring into the Abyss. I am your host, horror author James Hershey Jr., and with me, as always, my co-host, old boy James Ash. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. How is everybody tonight?
Tonight's show is going to be interesting. It's one that I talked about last week a little bit, and we have talked about this subject matter on past shows. And that subject matter is, were dinosaurs and humans on Earth at the same time? Did they coexist? Now, right off the bat, you might say, no, of course not, dummy. Did you not go to school? They tell us in school that millions of years separate the two. But probably by the end of tonight's show, either you will have changed your mind, or at the very least, we will have given you something very, very interesting to think about. Because, surprisingly, there is actual evidence that dinosaurs and mankind may just have been on the Earth at the same time and interacting with each other. So we have a pretty cool article for you tonight. So let's go ahead and get right into it. So Nigel, can you go ahead and read that article that I sent to you, brother?
Of course. I would be pleased to help. Tonight's article comes from historicmysteries.com. The headline is, Did Humans and Dinosaurs Coexist? It was written by Les Hewitt. Perhaps humans and dinosaurs really did live together. The Paluxy River, or Creek, in Texas, is considered to be the best known and most famous example of dinosaur tracks in the known world. These footprints can be viewed at the Dinosaur Valley State Park, which can be found at Glen Rose, Somervell County. These tracks are not the only examples discovered. However, they did cause quite a stir back in the 1930s, when human footprints were discovered. The footprints were alongside and, in some cases, interacting with recognized dinosaur tracks. This poses the question, did humans and dinosaurs coexist? The furore surrounding those footprints may have died down several decades ago. However, there are other examples of possible dinosaur-human interactions that cannot be dismissed so easily. The magnificent temple at Angkor Wat in Cambodia was built in the 12th century for King Suryavarman II. Look carefully and in the proper place. Visitors can see an animal on one of the tiles of the spitting image of a Stegosaurus. The first confirmed fossil discovery was only made in the early 19th century. So someone either got extremely lucky with a guess 600 plus years in advance, or they had first-hand knowledge of a living Stegosaurus. This carving shows the complete animal as it were witnessed during life, and not a collection of newly discovered bones. Does this prove that humans and dinosaurs coexisted? It is wild speculation at best. Dinosaur stone paintings in Peru. On his birthday in 1961, a farmer gave Peruvian Dr. Javier Cabrera a small stone as a present. When Cabrera took a closer look at the engraving upon it, he established that it showed a fish that had been extinct for several million years. At least that was the assumption that science had arrived at. This was not the first time that a previously extinct fish had been discovered. Several days before Christmas in 1938, A living coelacanth was caught off the coast of Madagascar. Underwater cameras have also captured what some insist is a live megalodon. Cabrera became fascinated by his birthday gift and wanted to find out more about it. The stone itself consisted primarily of andesite, which is a volcanic rock and not at all easy to engrave. During the course of his investigation, Cabrera managed to locate several hundred additional examples of the same artwork. Some of these can fit in the palm of the hand, while others would need quite a bit of manpower in order to be moved. Are the Ica stones genuine? To date, there are approximately 50,000 stones samples recorded. Among the animals identified on these stones are brachiosaurs, tyrannosaurs, and a triceratops. On one stone, a carnivorous dinosaur is feasting on a human. Other etchings show tribesmen riding tame sauropods. It is possible the stones were fakes, although it is not certain how many. The farmer who claimed to have found them had to say that he made them. It is illegal to sell real artifacts in Peru, and he could have gone to jail. He also later said that he did not make all of them. Carbon dating limitations. It would be all too easy to dismiss all of this as a work of fiction. However, the problem is that carbon dating is nothing more than an estimate. Scientists carbon date an item by pairing two separate carbon isotopes, carbon-12 and carbon-14, and comparing the rate of expected decay and radioactivity of a given organic compound. Carbon-14 is not the most reliable factor in this equation. It can be prone to contamination from outside sources such as solar or cosmic radiation, which can lead to erroneous results. It's almost like contaminating a crime scene. The dinosaur fossils consist of stone. This makes them too old for a definitive age using current carbon dating techniques. The age of the bones results from the age of the deposits found in and around them. Tantalizing rumors of living dinosaurs. When the infamous surgeon's photo appeared in the British tabloid press back in the 1930s, many believed that the definitive answer to the Loch Ness monster was that it was a prehistoric plesiosaur that had defied extinction and survived well into the modern day, before someone proved it a hoax. It was an intriguing supposition and one that may apply to other rumored prehistoric animals said to lurk in far-flung corners of the world. In the remote north of the Congo, experts believe there may be a sauropod living in the area. Numerous expeditions into the Brazzaville region of the country hasn't produced solid proof of the Mokele Mbembe, but local tribes and villagers insist that the animal is a real one. Did humans and dinosaurs coexist? If we let our imaginations out of their cages for just a bit, then certainly humans did coexist with dinosaurs. The reason is that not all dinosaurs died out together. There still are extant species that lived millions of years ago. The coelacanth is just one example. This fish is a 360 million year old species that supposedly went extinct 65 million years ago during the Great Extinction. This was when most of the other dinosaurs died off. However, someone caught a coelacanth off the coast of South Africa in 1938. And since then a few more have emerged. The 500 million year old nautilus is another example. This deep-sea tentacled creature has not changed much at all through time. However, we can still easily find them in just about every commercial aquarium. Crocodiles, turtles and tortoises, sharks, and some other reptiles have been around since the time of the dinosaurs as well. Therefore, perhaps it's correct to say that humans still coexist with dinosaurs. We just don't know how many. According to current results, weather and science facts. Undiscovered species. How many are there left to find? Most of the world's species remain undiscovered by science. Biologists have described and classified 1.7 million plants and animals as of 2010. less than 1/4 of the total species estimated in the world. Scientists figure there are still over 5 million species awaiting discovery. If there are still species around that are 500 million years old today, then certainly our 1.6 million year old human ancestors who first left Africa were amongst even more dinosaurs that hadn't died out yet. Theories and fringe theories to consider. A ton of theories outlining the extinction of the dinosaurs have emerged throughout the years. The most widely held belief is that an asteroid or comet strike, perhaps from the Baptistina asteroid, struck the Yucatan Peninsula approximately 65 million years ago and accelerated climate change. While the impact most certainly did occur, there are questions that defy that idea. Perhaps the biggest of these was how did certain animals manage to survive that impact? As noted, we still have many archaic species living today. Might some other cause have ended their reign? According to some scientists, they found a layer of iridium within the KT boundary. They suggest that perhaps a nuclear cataclysm took place in the distant past. Iridium deposits may occur with a cosmic strike such as a meteor, but is also a byproduct of the nuclear arsenal. Most tyrannosaur fossils found have a special coating because their bones are still reputed to be highly radioactive. Maybe the dinosaurs survived the extinction and became embroiled in a territorial war with the emerging humans. A war that could still be taking place today. Did humans and dinosaurs coexist in the past? Or are we still coexisting? And that is the end of the article.
Okay, thank you, Nigel. Appreciate it. So there's a lot here to kind of break down and kind of go over. The first thing I want to talk about is this carving, the stone carving of what looks to be a Stegosaurus. Now, if you are watching this video right now on YouTube, on your screen right now will be that photograph of the carving of the Stegosaurus. Now, a couple things that I would like for you to keep in mind when you're looking at this photograph. The first is, at the time this was done, they had absolutely no idea what a dinosaur was, because we hadn't even discovered them yet. Nobody knew what a Stegosaurus was. Nobody knew what a Stegosaurus supposedly looked like, because none had been put together. In the article, it says that it doesn't look like just a random pile of bones, like it should. The reason they say that is because nobody had constructed a Stegosaurus yet. Nobody had constructed dinosaurs yet. So anything that these people would have been found just as bones. And I highly doubt that they were taking the time to dig up all these bones, figure out what order they go in, and constructing replicas of different dinosaurs to know what they look like. So the article says that it is wild speculation at best, but I have to vehemently disagree with that assessment. I don't think there's anything speculative or wild about thinking that if these people had no idea what a Stegosaurus looked like, no idea what a dinosaur was, had never seen one, why would they be able to carve literally a perfect rendition of a Stegosaurus? Nothing else that exists on Earth that we know of during that time period even closely resembled a Stegosaurus. I'll even go further than that. Nothing that existed at that time even remotely resembled a Stegosaurus. Nothing. So how did these people know what one looked like to carve it? That is a very, very important piece of evidence in my mind, because it proves that these people had seen one before, somewhere. Either that or they just got incredibly lucky carving something that they're making up out of their imagination. And it just so happens that it is a perfect replica of a dinosaur that went extinct millions of years before they carved it, supposedly. So that's the first thing I want to talk about. The next thing I want to talk about, I think is the nail in the coffin, the smoking gun, the coup de grace of this whole argument. And that is the footprints that were talked about in the article. Now, it says in the article that they're all kind of mixed together and intertwined. Let me explain a little bit about that, because I've seen photographs of these footprints. I've talked about them on other episodes of Staring. What you have is you have dinosaur footprints in the stone, and you have human footprints in the stone. So they had to be formed around the same time, because they had to be formed at a point where that stone was soft to where they could leave a print. But even greater than that is the fact that some of these footprints are intertwined in a way that only could have happened if man and dinosaur were there at the same time. You have human footprints in the stone. On top of those footprints, you have dinosaur prints. So essentially what happened here is a human being walked across and left those footprints. A dinosaur came along and stepped on the footprints that the human being left. So in some of these prints, you have a human print, and then over top of part of it is a dinosaur print, which means it was already there when the dinosaur walked in and stepped on it. That, I think, is the best possible evidence we could have in this case. And I think it proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that they existed together. Now, keep in mind, when I say that, I don't say that lightly. I know we talk about a lot of kind of out there things on this show, and a lot of times we're going to be dealing with subject matter that you might not believe actually exists. And the idea of humans and dinosaurs living together is one that you might find a little bit outlandish. And I don't blame you for that, because we are taught in school that that is not the case. We are taught in school that dinosaurs lived on Earth for millions and millions and millions and millions of years. A giant asteroid came from space, hit the Earth, was such a tremendous impact and explosion and everything, and it sent all of this debris and dirt and dust up into the atmosphere. That blocked out the sun. The sun couldn't get in, vegetation died. When vegetation died, the majority of the herbivores died. When the herbivores died, the carnivores died, because they couldn't feed anymore on the herbivores after a while. That's what we're taught in school. And then somehow we had this little bitty shrew-like creature, this little bitty mammalian creature like a mouse almost, that managed to survive. And then through some sort of magic, that shrew or mouse or whatever the hell it was eventually ends up turning into monkeys. From the ape, we get us. Once again, magically happened. Because there's no links, there's no transitional species that got us from the little mouse creature to where we are today. There's no transitional species or transitional fossils that put us from apes to man. But we're just supposed to believe that that is the case. So that's what science tells us happened. And this time of dinosaurs and this time of humans were separated by tens of millions of years. That's what we're taught. But in this article, we had multiple examples of evidence that points to a very different reality than that. I spoke about the carving of the Stegosaurus. I spoke about the footprints. Both of those are pretty damning evidence in my mind that we're not being told the truth. But there's a lot more evidence than that. They talked about the Ica stones. Now, I'm not going to get into the politics of Peru or why the guy had to lie, all that kind of stuff. But if those Ica stones are true, if they're real, if they aren't forgeries, they have carvings on there of men riding sauropods, a type of dinosaur. So that puts man and dinosaur on Earth at the same time as well. Then we also have to look at every single piece of folklore around the world. Every civilization has their own folklore and legends. And every single one of them talk about dinosaurs. They don't always call them dinosaurs, but they talk about sea monsters. They talk about dragons. They talk about all kinds of mythical creatures that match what we know to be dinosaurs today. Now, I mentioned dragons. That's because I believe that dragons did exist. I believe that they were actually dinosaurs. And I believe that they survived all the way up until our early history. And I think that mankind had a war with these dinosaurs because they were terrorizing us. And we said, these guys suck. We got to get rid of them. They're destroying every damn thing. They're eating people. And so we went about exterminating them. Notice in the legends, there's multiple different kinds of dragons that do multiple different kinds of things. I think that's because there's multiple different kinds of dinosaurs. Different species of dinosaurs that do different things and fight in different ways. You have legends of dragons that are not the normal dragon that you see in most movies and stuff like that, where they have the wings and they shoot the fire and they fly around. You have what was called draconians, which were dragon men. Okay, they had like the characteristics of a dragon. They looked like a dragon, but they were in a humanoid shape. Nowadays, a lot of guys would call that a reptilian. But in the older legends, they're called draconians. And those also might have been based on dinosaurs. Because let's think about what kind of dinosaur possibly could fit that mold. I would say that something like the velociraptor would be a perfect scapegoat for that legend. Because it is around 6 to 8 foot tall, so it's in our kind of wheelhouse, our range of height, maybe a little bit taller, but not too bad. They were extremely intelligent. They hunted in packs, they used strategy, and they were vicious. So I could definitely see that being turned into some sort of dragon man, because they stood upright, they ran on 2 legs, they match other than the tail. And with their intelligence level, I could see people calling them dragon men or draconian or reptilian nowadays, whatever. That makes sense to me. Now, Old Boy has a really interesting theory about reptilians that I'm going to let him talk about when he comes on, because I don't want to steal his thunder. But I think a lot of these things were based on actual living dinosaurs, and I think it goes on today. I think you have the Loch Ness Monster, you have Champ from Lake Champlain, you have all these different lake monsters, which are some sort of dinosaur, whether you believe it is a plesiosaur or whether you believe that it is some other type of aquatic dinosaur. That fits and makes sense. I think that Mokele Mimbe is a dinosaur that has survived. Even when we're talking Bigfoot, I think Bigfoot is Gigantopithecus, so that comes from the early days of man. Gigantopithecus is an offshoot of man. It's a hominoid, but it's a different species that existed long ago. So if we have man and dinosaur existing at the same time on Earth, you would have Neanderthal, you would have Homo floresiensis, you would have Gigantopithecus, you would have all of these other offshoots of humanity that also existed on Earth at those times. What if a lot of these old legends and folklores, a lot of these fairy tales that we grew up hearing about, a lot of these stories of knights fighting dragons and all this stuff, what if all of that stuff actually existed, but got exaggerated through storytelling? What if it's all based on real life dinosaurs that were still around on Earth in the early days of humanity? And the reason why those things do not exist today is because we destroyed them all. We killed them off because they are dangerous as hell. It makes sense because look at the stories of dragons. They would come flying in and destroy villages. They would snatch people up and eat them. Well, if you had things like a pterodactyl or something like that that survived into the time when civilization was starting to form in a small way through different villages and stuff like that, what would a pterodactyl do if it saw people hanging out on the ground? Well, most likely it would swoop down and grab one of them and take them and eat them. Because they are, after all, a predator. So it makes complete and total sense that they would snatch people up and eat them. Most likely it would be women and children, because that's what predators do. They go after the weakest of the group. So that makes perfect sense. A lot of these old legends kind of go that way, to where you have these creatures that come in and they steal the women or they steal the children or whatever, and they take them away. Very well could have just been remnants of dinosaurs that came in and found a quick meal, a quick and easy meal that couldn't defend itself. And the reason why we go to war with these things is because they're killing women and children. They're a nuisance. They are a danger. Imagine walking out of your house and there's a pack of raptors there waiting for you. Imagine you want to go out and have a picnic with your old lady and a damn pterodactyl comes flying in and takes her away. Now, I don't know about you, but that's enough for me to go to war. That's enough for me to say, you know what? Screw these things. They all have to die now. And I would be willing to bet that that is where the legends about dragons comes from. I think that they still existed in limited numbers, not massive numbers, but I think that some of them were still around, and that's where all those legends come from. As I mentioned today, we have Michele Membe, we have the lake monsters, we have Bigfoot, we have Chupacabra, we have all of these creatures that could be explained by being ancient species that we believe are extinct. Then you have some that come from that time period that are still here today. The article talked about it. You got sea turtles, you got alligators, you got sharks, you got all kinds of stuff. The article talked about the megalodon and how they have underwater footage of an enormous shark that they believe to be the megalodon shark. Now, we've talked a great deal on Staring over the years about the megalodon shark because it happens to be one of our favorites. And I honestly believe that these things still exist out there in the ocean somewhere. I don't think that there's tons of them, but I think that there's enough to keep the species going, and they're out there. We've got footage to prove it. We've got witness accounts to prove it. One of these days, one of them will be captured. They'll be caught somehow or killed, and the body will be brought back. And then we'll all know for sure that they are in fact here. But that is another species from just after the time of dinosaurs. When we believed dinosaurs to go extinct, that gave all of these sharks and marine predators the opportunity to play a much bigger role in the ecosystem, because these massive aquatic dinosaurs weren't around anymore, supposedly. And that's why they were able to evolve and do all of that stuff. Now, do I believe that? Probably not. I think regardless, these things would have eventually evolved. Because, especially if you have larger dinosaurs in the water, then it makes sense that you would have a larger shark to feed on them. So I think that's where the megalodon would have came in. I don't think that necessarily the aquatic predators had to have been gone, the dinosaurs I'm speaking of, in order for megalodon to come into being. I think that, in essence, what a shark does, it's a killing machine. It swims around looking for wounded fish and eats them. Wounded anything, really, and eats them. So there's no reason to believe that that would be any different if dinosaurs were still around in the ocean. It would still serve that exact same purpose. So I think that the megalodon is probably out there too. when you consider the fact that dinosaurs could very well still be around in the early days of man, in a significant number, not a massive number, not everywhere, but in significant enough numbers to where it made its way into our legends and our fairy tales and our folklores. When you think about it that way, a lot of those old legends make a lot better sense. A lot of those old legends seem not to be quite so fanciful anymore because they are based on reality. Now, Old Boy has said on this show countless times that every legend and every bit of folklore is based on a nugget of truth, that they're exaggerated. And I think that perfectly describes what happened in this case. I think you have real dinosaurs, real creatures that exist. And over the years, the tales of what those things did and how mankind eliminated them took on a mythical quality as the story got told and retold and exaggerated with each telling. All of a sudden, the dinosaur that swooped out of the sky and was snatching up people and taking them away and eating them turned into an invincible monster that could breathe fire and all of these things, and slept on a mountain of treasure. Those are obvious exaggerations for a creature that is very, very real. Now, the breathing fire part may or may not be an exaggeration. We honestly don't know. But when you look at all of the crazy things in nature and what they can do, it might not be that outlandish to think that there was something to breathe fire. You have creatures on this planet right now that spit poison, that spit acid. You have the ghost shrimp, which shoots out of its mouth a sonic blast that literally kills things that it touches. You have an animal that literally has bacteria in its mouth that when it bites you, it can kill you. Simply because of the bacteria. The wound gets badly infected, the bacteria spreads, it's horrible. So there are animals on Earth now that are 100% real and 100% known to science that can do some crazy things with their mouth. They can produce and shoot out poisonous and toxic substances that really defy any rational thinking. But yet, they exist. So why would it be so outlandish to think that there was one that could shoot fire? I mean, if you didn't know any better and I told you, hey man, there's this animal that will shoot poison out of its mouth and it'll shoot it into your eye and kill you, you'd say, man, you're crazy. That's not real. But it is. The spitting cobra is 100% real. It exists. If I told you that there were creatures that could shoot acid at you, you'd say, how does a creature have acid in its mouth? Wouldn't it eat through its mouth? That doesn't make any sense. It's not real. It is. All of these things actually exist. And it's kind of amazing what is possible in nature. So I wouldn't discount or completely throw out the idea of a dragon shooting fire. I mean, you have animals that will swallow stones and take those stones into their stomachs in order for their stomachs to digest plant matter better. So they'll eat the plants, they'll go down in their stomach where the stones are rattling around, and they kind of grind the plant matter, the grass or whatever they're eating, and help to digest it for them. That's crazy when you think about it, but it's real. So my main point is, I think that there's evidence to say that dinosaurs and man existed together. I think that there's evidence to say that dinosaurs are depicted not only in the folklore and legends, but in the artwork of multiple different cultures. The Chinese culture is filled with dragon imagery, which I believe to be a dinosaur. What else is a dragon if not a dinosaur? I think that there's more than enough evidence to entertain the idea that dinosaurs and humans lived together on Earth in the past. And still do, to some degree. Now, I'm not talking just about the species that have survived this long, like the shark and all that, because that's the obvious one. But I'm also talking about a lot of these cryptic creatures like Mekele Membe and the lake monsters. I went through the list. I think that they are also dinosaurs. I think that they still exist today. Just because you don't walk out your door and see it doesn't mean that it's not here somewhere. And I think that there's ample evidence to support that statement. So with that being said, I'm going to throw over to Old Boy and see what he has to say about the article and about this whole concept. And also, if he would, let him give his theory on reptilians. So Old Boy, go ahead, brother.
Thank you, brother. Do I believe the footprints are real? Because I think it was in Peru or something. Yeah. I don't think you can fake that. It's just the way they're condescendingly walking next to each other. It's probably true. Who says dinosaurs extinct, 60 million years, 40 million years ago? Well, that's only because we found, dinosaur bones and stuff like that. But who says that they didn't live all the way up to like 60,000 years? We don't know. Just because we haven't found the bones doesn't mean it happened. Just like it doesn't. The only issue I have with the human being was we haven't found a skeleton or anything next to a dinosaur. That's evidence altogether. But that's pretty good. I think it might have happened. Maybe it wasn't a dinosaur that we see that, in Jurassic Park and stuff like that. But it's something similar. Just like they evolve, just like we do. Like everybody, everything evolves. And my theory on the reptilians is I'll talk about that in about a couple minutes. So we'll get to that in a couple minutes and where I think might have happened. It's just a theory. So I believe that it's real. I believe like with footprints with Bigfoot. I don't believe all of them, but I believe some of them. I believe about 20% of them are fact or something. Yeti, whatever you want to say, there's footprints. They've even found a 3-foot print, huge, it looked like it's probably as big as a human foot, but it had 3 web, and you could see it. It looked like some kind of creature, maybe a dinosaur for all we know. I don't think that all dinosaurs extinct. I don't agree with it. I think they evolved somehow. We have sharks that's been here for 20 million years. So alligators. There is dinosaurs. They have evolved. So I do believe there's a possibility, like he was saying, there's writings on the wall millions of years ago. There's writings, Stegosaurus. I don't believe they just thought about that, out of their imagination. It's not impossible, but highly unlikely. I think they saw something like that. But I can't say the name Makembe. I'll just say that. It's supposed to be a bronze. I don't know. I forget how to say the name, but it was a giant dinosaur that they say it exists, and they have pictures of it. There's thousands of people have seen this thing. It hasn't just been a couple people. That over the years, thousands of people have seen this thing. So I believe it, and it supposedly eats elephants, everything. It's 3 times bigger than that. So, do I believe that those prints are real? Yes. I believe in, like he was talking about, dragons. I believe that might be exaggerated, but we don't know. How do we know what dragons are? Were they made by us? Were they made by an alien being that made them and had them flying around, and they realized they couldn't be here because they were just too crazy powerful? Or did we kill them all, or did they just disappear? Because I believe magic exists, like Merlin and all that. I believe some of that. I believe that dragons were real. Maybe not exactly like they blew fire or anything, but and ice and all this stuff. But maybe they did. Maybe they were different. Maybe there was different dragons. Maybe they were spirits that betrayed themselves as something else. We don't know. We don't know what's going on with dragons. What the truth is on that. Where I don't believe they made those up. I don't believe it was sitting in like James said earlier, a pile of gold either. I think that's been exaggerated. That's movie, Hollywood, Hobbit. But I believe some of the old legends. I believe some of these creatures existed, and it isn't just dinosaurs. Dinosaurs existed. We know it. There's proof of it. People want to argue it, whatever. I don't care. There's proof of it. Dinosaurs exist. 99% of people believe that. There is probably a few who don't. Just like a few people think the world's still flat, and there's still people who believe that. Just stuff like that. There's people who believe this. So, do I believe some of that? No, not at all. I believe that's just more rhetoric. But with these prints, I believe they're pretty real. I just don't see anybody faking it. Just they've proven it can't be fake. So now we'll get into the reptilian theory. Okay, they say everything evolves. Like we evolved. Well, how do we know? How do we know the reptilians? And the reason why the hell are you talking about reptilians during finding of dinosaur and humans walking? Okay, this is why. How do we know the reptilians didn't evolve to what they are now? They were dinosaurs that evolved over millions and millions of years, have been here longer than we have. And if they did survive, maybe a few branched off, and they showed what they would look like. I seen it on I think it was one of those alien shows, what they would look like over time if they evolved, and they look pretty similar to us, other than they'd be a little bit bigger. So how do we not know that reptilians didn't find a way and just buried themselves under Earth or went to another planet? They were highly evolved farther than we were. They were here longer than we were. Didn't find a way to evolve, and they turned into dinosaurs, or they were dinosaurs. They didn't turn. They turned into like a lizard man, like he was talking about. And how do we know that's not what happened? That's what I was going to talk about earlier. Is how do we know that the reptilians are not descendants to dinosaurs? We don't know that. We don't know if that's what reptilians is. People don't even believe they exist, but there's people who do. How do we know that's not who they are? They just evolved over millions of years. They still look like that, but then they can transfer. They've learned how to morph their bodies to human beings, or they know how to do stuff. They've been here longer. How do we know that's not what happened? I'm just throwing a theory. I'm not saying I believe it, but I'm just saying something that probably no one ever thought about. Are reptilians ancestors dinosaurs, and they just evolved over millions and millions of years, and that wouldn't be impossible. And so they've had a hand in everything that's going on, and people still say they do. They're still around. They claim that they're high power. They run the country. They pretend to be human, but they're really not. Vladimir Putin claims that the Queen was one, and he's seen her do things. And that was the president of Russia. I'm not saying that I believe him, but why would he put himself out like that? He said he's seen it with his own eyes. They exist. So how do we know they haven't just mixed in with us and they run us? Maybe that's what he was running the world, and then some other aliens came and kicked them out of here, and there was a big war. I think dinosaurs were in our culture for thousands of years before we don't even know. Maybe they got taken away. Maybe people hid what they didn't want people to know the truth. I always have believed that. I believe they hide the truth about giants. They hide everything. Dinosaurs was just impossible because there's too many times they found them. They couldn't hide it at the time. They probably tried to. It didn't work. I mean, for thousands of years, the Chinese have been using dinosaur bones as for some of their medicine. And come to find out, it's very toxic because of the lead in the bone. And it's just toxic. They're smoking it, and they're not supposed to. But they've been using dinosaur bones for thousands of years. They've destroyed things. They were talking about it could have existed. We don't know. We don't know what we did. We could have destroyed everything like we always do. We have a tendency to destroy things. Instead of thinking about it, we regret it after. Now we're smarter, but there's still people who go around destroying things knowing it's illegal, but they still do it because they don't know any better. And that's the sad thing with a lot of things in life, and I don't want to get into that, but most people don't read reality and they watch TV or the news and they think that's real, and that's the problem. That's why people sit at home probably listening to the show. This isn't real. They're crazy because I don't see it, so it doesn't exist. So that's the problem also, because like James was saying, just because you don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Do I know that blue whales exist? Yes. Have I seen them all the time? No, I'm not by an ocean, but they are there. People have seen it millions of times. I've seen them with my own eyes. I've been whale watching years ago, so I've seen it. Lions, I don't see them all the time, but they exist. They're very rare if I see them in a circus or a zoo, but I've seen them. Bigfoot. There's tens of millions of photos and videos. It's impossible for all of them to be wrong. I don't believe 9 million of them. If you take the 10, I believe there's about 10% you can't say it's true or fake. And you never will be. The Patterson video, I don't believe it's fake. I don't care what anybody says. In the 60s at that time, they couldn't get a suit like that unless they had millions of dollars. They already said the guy who claimed that he was in the suit admitted before he died to his own son he was lying about it. And he came out and told him he was lying, saying that he made that up because he was just mad because the guy didn't give him any credit. Patterson didn't give him any credit. So my personal opinion is I believe those footsteps. I don't believe in a lot of things, and I think that there is some kind of connection there. But the problem is, like James said, they were just too dangerous and too much of a problem. The problem is we always want to bring everything back that wants to destroy us. I think we're our own enemy, and that's just human being nature. I think we're scared of things, but we're so crazy we'll go mess with it. You know, like I want to do a show because I just read they are trying to do inbreeding with humans and animals, and they already said they already have the first one done in another country. Now, I'm not going to say how much I believe that or not, but they are doing it. It's a proven fact. They're testing to do it, and we could do a show about this, and hopefully this, like I said, we always do shows that brings up other things, and this will be a show we'll talk about now in the future, so it's a prequel. But that's can happen. Like a lagger. My friend didn't believe the lagger existed until I showed him a video of it, and now it does. And it used to be people didn't think that was ever going to happen, and it did. Like the polar grizzly. The grizzly bear and the polar bears are mixing, and it's happened. They did it on their own. They didn't have people doing it like they did with the lagger. They genetically did it. They did it on their own. That's what's crazy. So it looks like a polar bear, but a grizzly's body. It's weird. And it's happened. I think that's what like the Hydra and stuff before. I think that's happened. We had weird looking monsters back then, and they had to be killed. And they were looked as the gods. And I think that's where we got a lot of the god things and stuff like that was from this. They thought these dinosaurs were giant monsters, and didn't know any better. And so we probably killed them. I also think they had a lot to do with our history, more than people think. And it's not all about, it has nothing to do with religious beliefs or anything. I'm just saying altogether, I think they have something to do with our culture. We just don't know it yet because we haven't found everything, or it's been destroyed. And that's a whole nother show we could talk about too, about people destroying things. We all know that that's a possibility. They don't want you to know everything. In other countries, we don't know everything because they don't want people to know. They live in a different world. There's different laws and stuff. There's stuff that we do in America you can't do in other countries. You can get killed or go to jail for. And vice versa. The drinking age is not different in other countries. It's 16 in Germany and all that, and 15 in some parts of Europe. Here it's 21. Unless you're in the military, I think it's 18. But that's only on a military facility. But that's just, there's different weird worlds. And maybe the way we see something is maybe we didn't see then that we see now. And they might have thought, oh, well, this isn't important, and they destroyed it. We'll never know if it was there. That's a lot of things. Ignorance is like, oh, we have a lot of them. And so they just, over time, they got destroyed. And now we don't know everything. Like Atlantis and Samaria, they're all gone. We're never going to know unless we find something. Hardcore evidence. There's already evidence they existed. But till we actually find it, I still think people will argue it. Oh, it's not true. It's just TV. They made it fake. It's not, dude. Most of this stuff is not fake. They found temples in the Middle East that were carved into the stone perfectly. They're giant doors and stuff like that. And look, and they're crazy symbols and creatures on it. That just didn't happen. There's reasons for it. We just don't know. So that being said, yes, I do think they are real footprints. And I just want to talk about the reptilian theory because I just wanted to throw that in there because, we did a show a while ago about reptilians. And I thought maybe they could be ancestors of dinosaurs. And no one probably ever thought about that. And I'm throwing it out there, what you guys think. Tell me in your comments what you guys think it is, what you think it could be. And tell me if you believe the footprints, because I do. Yeah, I believe there's a lot of stuff we don't know of. I don't believe that people primitive were just drawing pictures of no reason and it just happened to look like that. No, I'm sorry. They showed giant thunderbirds in here where they said the thunderbird existed. There's pictures of a pterodactyl, thousands of years old. So yes, I believe it. That's another thing I forgot to talk about. The thunderbird here, I think it's in California, Utah, I forget what, but the Indians have always carved stuff in the wall saying it's been here forever. It's a giant pterodactyl. And they existed. They didn't know it existed then, but they drew pictures of it. So come on now, just like the Egyptians drew about aliens in spaceships. It's there. It's there. No one can argue it. It's there. They have the thing in I think it's in Peru, where it looks like a guy in a NASA suit. It does. So it was carved in their culture. So there's a lot of things we are never going to know because we lost it. And if we do, people are just going to argue, oh, it's not real. But I'm sorry, I have to agree with James on a lot of this right now. And it's not just because we do a show together. It's because I totally agree with him. But there you go, brother.
The one thing that I'll say to wrap up this show, because we're out of time. The fallacy of mankind, at least modern man, is everybody thinks they know everything. And most people don't know a whole lot. I don't say that to be insulting. What I mean by that is every time there's a new theory or a new bit of evidence comes up, the majority of the population will automatically discount it and say, oh, that's not real. We need to be more curious. We need to question these things. That is the basis and the foundation of science, is questioning. If you can't question something, you're never going to learn. So all I ask for everybody to do is approach this subject and other subjects that we talk about with an open mind. Hear the evidence, and then decide for yourself. Because in the end, it's up to you to make up your own mind. That being said, I'm going to throw back over to Old Boy for a quick shout out, and we will wrap up.
Thank you, brother. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. I hope you guys follow us on Parax Radio every Sunday night at 9 Pacific, 12 Eastern. Tuesday nights, 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. They're playing our reruns, so I hope you guys listen to it. If you guys want to follow us on YouTube, follow the YouTube page at James Hershey Jr.'s YouTube page. You guys want merchandise, shirts, COVID masks, all kinds of cool stuff. He'll tell you where to go in a minute. We have a store, so I hope you guys check it out. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Like James says, please leave your comments down there and let us know what you think. So I hope you guys have a good night. Misfits, sugar ladies, monster lovers, and demon hunters. I love you, and have a great night, and blessed be.
The YouTube channel is youtube.com/James Hershey Jr. Please go, subscribe, enjoy the videos. There's hundreds and hundreds of videos there. There's all kinds of cool stuff for you, 100% free. In the description box of every video is all the links, so that's where you'll find the link to the merchandise store and everything else. Thank you all for watching. I hope that you enjoyed the show, and until we speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do we. Bye-bye.